This is a breaking news story. It's the doctors are going on strike again. Do you think doctors' strikes have gone too far? Maybe you were broadly sympathetic at first, but now you've lost patience with doctors striking, or maybe you think they're absolutely right. The number's 0207 862 2222. Resident doctors, formerly known as junior doctors, have announced they're going to strike for 5 consecutive days later this month. They're walking out between the 25th and the 30th of July in England in a row over pay, and this is after 90% of voting doctors backed strike action. In September, members of the BMA voted to accept a government pay deal worth about 22% on average over 2 years. Resident doctors were offered a pay uplift of around 5% in May too, but they say that they need 29% to reverse real Times pay erosion since 2008. Health Secretary Wes Streeting called the move unnecessary and unreasonable. Do you agree? Do give us a call, 0207 862 2222. Let's go to you first on this, Albie. Unnecessary and unreasonable, says the Health Secretary. Is he right?
I think he is right. I think a lot of people had a lot of sympathy with the junior doctors when they first went on strike all of those years ago. But it feels like nowadays they're going on strike so often, and the demands that they're making are so unreasonable. Almost a 30% pay rise is what they want. I know they talk about wanting restoration back to 2008 levels, but that will be a 30% pay increase. I mean, what a way to go into a negotiation when you want a higher wage. I want a 30% pay rise, please. No one's getting that. So I just think a lot of people are really struggling at the moment. Everyone wants a pay rise. And they're sort of thinking, well, Labour gave them a pay rise last year. Why do they need an even bigger one this year?
Let's bring Ronni in on this. I mean, I know you've got medics in the family.
Yes.
Do you have some kind of sympathy with what's going on?
Well, do you know what? I was talking to Albie before we came on. The whole subject of the NHS is just so difficult because it's been put on a pedestal, and it's very difficult to have objective conversations about it because it's highly emotive and it's the flower of our nation and etc. But of course, as with the other pressures that we're talking about in the show, you know, people are living longer and there are more drugs for a lot of ailments that they never used to have that are more and more expensive. So it's a bottomless pit that goes on and on. And, you know, I think there needs to be a lot of restructuring. With regards to doctors per se, my slight concern is that I'm very well aware that there's terribly low morale within doctors and junior doctors, which is very, very sad. But I would ask the question, are the BMA a political organisation or are they a supportive organisation? They should be a supportive organisation. And whereas I don't want to get into the ins and outs of the pay element.
But do you think they need more money? Do you think they deserve more money? Do you think they're doing an incredibly hard job? They're working incredibly long hours. They're sacrificing their personal lives. You know, they really are making life and death decisions. It's not just, you know, everything rests on them.
But I am saying, but what I am saying is important, Vanessa, because I'm saying that low morale isn't always to do with money and how much you're paid. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
The lack of support, if you know
what I mean. What do you mean by support?
Well, because what I'm saying is that I think that it ends up being, if you're feeling with low morale, then you make that correlation between it's because I haven't got enough money, it's because it's not enough money. It's not always about that. You know, I don't agree with a lot of the way the BMA have...
Well, there are very severe problems. There are problems with recruitment and problems with retention. So what it means is there are not sufficient people to do the work. So lots of junior doctors and nurses are absolutely scurrying to do the work of several people at once, which is incredibly, as you say, demoralising, because you can't do the good job you want to do, because you're being spread far too thinly.
But do you see the point I'm making?
I do.
There's a lack of an infrastructure and a support there. And if you know what I mean, it's not always about... And then I think
except this strike, they are striking for more money.
Yes,
that's what they're not asking for more support.
Well, I am with it. I mean, you know, I've always got huge sympathy for doctors. Obviously, I do have connections with a lot of medics. But I do feel, you know, there are a lot of people who work. It's not just doctors who work very hard.
Also
There are a
true.
lot of people on the
Hannah,
front line
what
that
do you
work
think?
hard as well.
I think that we've got an issue with a lot of my friends are doctors, actually. And I know from when they were resident junior doctors that one friend of mine said that she was on a ward over the weekend at a hospital and she had 100 elderly people under her care. And she was incredibly stressed. And I think the knowledge of knowing as well that you're underpaid, we all know that pay equals how much someone appreciates you and values you, makes it incredibly difficult. The other issue that we've got is a lot of intelligent students in this country are probably looking at the medical career option and thinking, is it really viable? Why don't I become a lawyer? Why don't I follow a different route? Am I actually going to have a good life? Because the pay isn't there anymore. And I think that a lot of people are actually shunning medicine as a career option.
And it's not just shunning medicine, it's people who are trained in this country at vast expense and then look at a job in New Zealand or even Ireland, which is only across the pond, and think, OK, will I be better paid and have a better standard of living and it will be better? And they're quitting and they're doing it in droves. And actually, quite a few of the striking junior doctors are saying, you know, if the government doesn't listen, we will take our extremely valuable knowledge and expertise and we'll take it to a different country.
But
which
they're
we
not
do
training
want
enough
to happen.
doctors as well. It's shocking.
Yeah,
the
very
shocking the way so many, you know, brilliant university students. And I do agree with what you're saying, Ronni. And I'm not saying that, of course, I want doctors to be paid as much as possible. I'm just saying there are other elements that they're not being supported in as well.
Una, what do you think? Do you think they're right to strike again?
Yes, I do. I don't think you can ever pay doctors enough money. And I really believe that. I think to do such a great job with all of the patients that you can't pay them enough. It's as simple as that. And I don't have any doctors in my family, and I know, but I'm a patient in the NHS, and I've always been looked after so well. And if you walk into any A&E and see the amount of people there, and those doctors and the nurses as well, they work so hard with a smile on their face. I wouldn't be able to do it.
It doesn't worry you, though, Una, that they've already had quite sizable pay increases and they've also already been on strike. You know, they were striking, for the last couple of years. You don't feel that they have had success in terms of getting more money and really now is not the time to strike again?
I don't think they were given enough money when they striked the last time.
Okay.
Doctors shouldn't have to go on strike. They should be treated properly from the word go.
Appreciate the call. Thank you. And it's also very, very nice to hear from somebody who is a very satisfied customer of the NHS and thinks she's been beautifully treated and beautifully looked after. Thank you. And that's the kind of pedestal that you were talking about when the NHS is worshipped. And you see why, because, you know, it's life and death, it's birth. I've got 2 excellent NHS daughters. I've got 4 magnificent grandchildren all born on the NHS. I would worship the NHS. You know, they've both, you know, delivered us from all sorts of terrible pestilence.
It's not like that for everyone. Not everyone's experience of the NHS is good. Some people have very bad experience of the NHS. I'm happy for Una, but there are lots of people who think they get a terrible service and they don't think the doctors should be paid any more.
Let's go to Gladys in Cheshire. What do you think, Gladys? Should they strike again?
No, I don't. I think it's absolutely disgraceful. I agree with that young man now who's talking now on the television.
Albie, yes.
Yes. Well, no, I've been treated good and bad in the things, so I'm not bothered about that. But what I'm saying is, I think they're absolutely disgraceful. They're on a damn good screw to start off with, other doctors. They go into that profession knowing what the ins and outs are before they start. They want to save lives. The way they're going on, they're going to lose lives. You know, I mean, everybody goes into a job to do a proper job. They do a proper job. Oh, glory, hallelujah. Same with the nurses and everybody else. But they get paid for it. It's the same as we've just been talking about now about pensioners and what have you. Everybody's got now, you're greedy.
Do you think so? Really? But Gladys, what if they just up and off? You know, what if they say, well, I could earn so much more in Canada, I could earn so much more.
There again, you train them here. We waste our money training these doctors and what have you. They should be made a pledge that they stay in England or wherever. And we have about 12 months, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years of their service before they're allowed to go abroad.
Gladys, thank you.
Sure.
And thanks for the suggestion, which is actually very sensible indeed. An excellent suggestion, I think, don't you?
Definitely.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody disputes, the nurses and the doctors are just, exemplary. I think there's a lot of problems with NHS within the management, the system of management. I think there's probably a lot of money that's wasted,
There's a lot of
in other
bureaucracy, and I think money could be taken from the management, as you say,
Yes.
and put back into the doctors, because they're the lifeblood of the NHS, aren't they? That's what keeps it going.
Except, of course, that it's a multi-gazillion pound business, the NHS, and the management are absolutely vital because
Of
they have
course
to
they're
manage.
vital.
They have to manage these enormous amounts of money.
course they're vital,
It's
it's just-
incredibly important that they're also competent and do a good job. Without them, you can't just have doctors and nurses just, on their own on the front line without an excellent management team. Whether there are too many of them and whether it's wasteful has been being discussed for years. I reckon I've been talking about it on air for about 30 years. Exactly the same thing. Let's talk to Patricia in Kent about this. Patricia, tell me what your experience is of the NHS.
Well, the NHS to me is a good place to be, but I often wonder why when you ring the doctors with a complaint, they refer you to 111 when it's something they used to deal with, but now they pass it on to the NHS, which are overloaded, but they're not worried about that as long as they don't have to take your symptoms.
Right.
The receptionists at my doctors are treated with respect, but you get this, do not talk to our receptionist, this, that and the other, like you're already put on your guard. And the appointments, when I try to get an appointment, still have to wait 3 weeks. When I do get there, the waiting room is mostly empty. I have an ongoing repeated condition which I need antibiotics for, and it's like I'm asking for gold dust. So I cannot understand why, with their big initial pay award recently or last year, why now they are asking for more money when I know they're educated people, but they don't work weekends and they only work a limited hours. Why are they holding the country to ransom, saying they can go abroad and get more money?
Patricia, thank you so much. And Patricia's not a satisfied customer, far from it. And she's sitting there in an empty waiting room that she has to wait 3 weeks to even go and sit in, for goodness sake. Let's talk to Claire in the West Midlands. What do you think, Claire? Should doctors go on strike again?
No, I don't think they should. Basically, I went to the doctors on a Monday and I was perfectly all right. And then by the Friday, I was being rushed into hospital with basically a bacterial abscess which had gone gangrenous.
Oh, my gosh,
And
poor
if they hadn't done the surgery within 24 hours, I wouldn't be talking to you, let's put it that way.
Oh, wow.
So,
Wow. So how are you now?
I'm on the mend. I've had to have surgery to basically allow my other surgeries heal. And I'm walking around with a walking stick because I can't keep my balance, basically. I do think the NHS needs revamping, to be quite honest, especially the doctors. The nurses and the surgeons were fantastic when I was in hospital. I couldn't fault them. But the doctors really need to have a look at what they're actually doing personally.
All right, Claire, thank you. And I do wish you a continued and speedy recovery. Thank you so much.